Welcome back, everybody. I'm Frosted Fricks, and I'm here to share with you another interview that I did at Fan Expo with an individual by the name of Taran Chadha, who writes for the Night Guardians of Relativity, and it's a comic book that I actually absolutely fell in love with, and I figured it would be a good idea to talk to the person who wrote it, and we can get an introspective look on what it takes to be a writer in the comic book industry or in the industry period. And let's roll the clip. Welcome, Freedom Family. I'm doing my first interview for today, and I am met up with
Taran Chadha.
And he is the writer for this wonderful comic that's right behind me called Relativity. I just moved way too far away from the mic, but we can work on that.
No worries. So it's called Night Guardians of Relativity, and it's part of the whole Relativity universe. So there's actually going to be multiple stories. There's also a spin-off called Pioneers of Relativity.
What are the tools that you use to help you do what you do here?
So as the writer, a lot of it is obviously scripting, but I think one of the things that people forget is like starting on pen and paper and actually drawing out the script beforehand, like actually, sort of coming up with a diagram of what you're going to do first is the way to go. So pen and paper, really, like.
So just pre-drafting a script and then writing off of that. Then.
Yeah, and then even when we do art, even with the artists, like a lot of people will do stuff. The ideas will come on paper first, and I think it's so important.
So when a teacher told you to do first draft, you didn't just hand it to him the first draft. You just did the first draft and then you kept going.
You got to keep going.
Yeah.
Seriously.
There's always room for improvement.
Exactly.
Never do it on the first try. Now the other question is, since there is a big community for the Freedom Family, they want to know. Well, actually, I want to know. Where can we find other people like you? Is there a community of writers that's really prevalent on the internet?
So there definitely is. There is on the internet. I think it's a little trickier to find. Like, I think you have to look at their work and their websites. Like, everyone's got their own personal sites. But I think, too, in the city, like, you come to things like Fan Expo and you meet people and you become friends with them, and there's actually studios in the city where we all collaborate on things, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
So it would be more of a local grouping instead of just...
Yeah, and so actually it's kind of interesting because, like, every city that's major has a studio, and every studio knows each other, and they're sort of like collaborative spaces.
So how do you guys find each other?
It's actually, we like find each other here. So I came to Fan Expo like 4 or 5 years ago for the first time, had a graphic novel, met some people, and then they brought me into the studio and then started working on stuff with them. And yeah, and there's like a lot of amazing talent in those studios. The guys like Ramon Perez or Francis Manipal who are here, they're all in that studio.
Now, what was your first graphic novel, if you don't mind my asking?
So it's called Ignotum.
Ignotum.
And it was 300 pages long. It was insane. You can find it online somewhere. And it's one of those things too where you like after 4 years you're like, wow, you look back and you're like, wow, my new stuff's so much better, you know what I mean? So you're just like, nobody talk about that one, like let's look at the new stuff, if that makes sense.
Look at all the shiny stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone has that. Even on YouTube, for people who are doing their channels, and for new channels, you'll realize that if you've watched an older video on someone's YouTube channel, it's terrible.
Totally. I love the expression of like you have to write the bad out of you or draw the bad out of you.
Just keep it going. Keep it going until it gets good. And then you're never perfect.
Exactly. Still, you're always like, it's interesting because like I'll talk to guys like Carrie Nord, who's an amazing artist.
Yeah.
And even he, you can see him, he's like, I gotta get better. And you're like, wow, you're like a hero to everyone here, like, and you're always saying that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, absolutely. If you look for talented people, where would you start to look for one? Like someone to help you?
Actually, so that's where online's really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Because I do scour DeviantArt, I scour Instagram, Tumblrs, I'll come across something and we'll get in touch with the artist for sure. Fan Expo, of course, is an easy one because the Artist Alley, it's so easy to just actually meet the person too and be like, oh, because you also want to work with an amazing artist, but you also want to know that this person is going to be professional because, you're working you're working with a marketing team, you're working with investors, you're working with all these other people that you forget about when you're an artist sometimes, you know what I mean?
No, yeah, I get you. And it's just, it probably is better to meet them face to face so it's easier to talk to them too.
Exactly.
So that's why conventions are actually good for artists and people who are trying to make connections.
100%. And even going to like the little fun, weird parties afterwards, that's where you like meet someone, you realize you like love the same comic series. I'll start talking to somebody about like Death Note or Princess Mononoke, and I'll be like, whoa, like we need to work on something together.
This is a good question. This is my favorite question to ask all the artists, all the writers, everyone that's at a convention that has some sort of influence. What would you tell a person trying to walk in your footsteps?
So the thing that made me sort of realize and sort of like figure out how to do this was to become an artist. It's as hard as becoming an Olympic athlete. Like, there's probably as many artists as there are Olympic athletes in Canada, I would say, like paid, working, full-time people.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that, like an Olympic athlete trains every day. They have coaches, mentors. They do it for like 10 years, a lot of them. And so I think that's the sort of idea you need to embrace. Like, don't think of yourself like, oh, I'm this amazing talent. It's got to be like, oh, I'm this amazing talent, but I need to do 10 years of training. And so come here and like meet people that can mentor you and just train every day and get better.
Yeah.
Like, that would be my main advice.
That's actually sound advice. On top of that, now here's another one I'm going to throw at you, because we were talking about this the other day, and I know you're more than just a novel writer.
Yeah.
I know you're more than just a novel writer because you've actually written for games as well.
I have.
I heard of a specific game that you were talking to me about. Could you explain to me this game and the name of it?
For sure. So it's called Bloodsport Gaming, and some of you might have seen it online. It was on Vice and Time and a few other places, Kotaku, IGN. Yeah. And so I'll tell you a little bit about it if you want to know.
I would love to hear more about this.
So the idea
Everyone would.
is when you're playing a video game and you lose blood in the video game, that's virtual blood. Our idea is what happens if we could actually make that blood loss real. So we're going to put an intravenous actually into your arm while you're playing the game, and it's hooked up to the rumble pack in your controller. So every time your controller rumbles, it pulls real blood out of your arm every time you get hit.
That's amazing. I would never play that personally because I hate the sight of my own blood, but I'm pretty sure there's people who would think that would be the most raddest thing ever. And I mean, like, I think it's awesome. I really do. I would love to watch somebody play that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Or hook it up to somebody else while I play the game and watch them bleed out.
For sure.
I'm sick. No.
Well, the good thing about it is, like, it sounds scandalous, but the good thing is all the blood gets donated to war-torn countries.
Okay, now that's interesting to know. So the blood you lose in a game is actually not just being tossed out or being siphoned back into you. It's actually donated blood.
Yeah, so it's actually all produced by the blood. The blood bank is working with us, and so the first real iteration of this is going to be in Spain next month. So we're partnered with a Spanish blood bank. I can't tell you the name of the video game, but it's a big video game that we are partnered with. Yeah, and so it should be pretty cool.
I'm actually looking forward to it. So is there maybe a website people could follow along on this?
So the official launch one is very under wraps at the moment, but you can check out the original prototype video that we put online. If you just look up Bloodsport Gaming, you can find that on YouTube.
Okay.
No problem. And so that was 2 years ago when we did the prototype, and everyone was like, "You guys are insane." And it took another 2 years before we got a video game company to sign on, the blood banks to be like, "Okay, this is safe," and we've got the technology. So the new device we have is actually a robot that has an infrared camera.
Okay.
And so that camera finds your vein, and then when you get hit, it punctures you.
See, now that's good, because I could go to a nurse or a blood bank and get my blood drawn. It takes them about 20 times to find my little... I actually walk out with more holes than I went in with that I even expected. Now, going back to the main questions is, what is the overall impression that you get for the industry you're in now?
In terms of like where it's going, or what it's like to be in it?
Let's say yes.
Okay, cool. So I think the big thing is right now, you're sort of multidisciplinary, if that makes sense. So a lot of guys I work with can do a lot of different things, if that makes sense. So like, you will write a comic book or you'll draw a comic book, but at the same time, a lot of people I work with, they're like doing storyboards for like a new Saw movie, or they're like, working on video games. And so it's interesting because you actually end up jumping across a lot of different platforms. I think even like, something like this, where the Night Guardians of Relativity starts off as a comic, it's becoming a VR video game. So that's already being developed. It's becoming, it's been optioned as a TV series. And so it's like, you kind of have to know everything now, which is intense, but also awesome.
So it's good to pretty much keep your options open, dip your fingers in as many pots as you possibly can get them in.
Totally, yeah, exactly. And like, I think just become like, you learn the foundations. So become an amazing writer and read novels and stuff, or like you're an artist, learn how to figure draw, like learn from like the masters like Michelangelo and stuff, like those guys. And then once you have that figured out, you can do everything, which is amazing.
And that's actually sound advice. As I said, guys, he's been in this industry. So I would take his advice about this type of stuff because it's really beneficial. It's really educational. Actually, I'm learning, and I'm not even a writer. I'm more of an entertainer, but I mean, like, still, even as an entertainer, you can learn from this because, as you said, getting your hands in everything, trying to try out new things, even redoing stuff just to figure out like where you've gone wrong or what you can do to improve.
Totally. And like it's fun because like I know a lot of people too who started off with like I started off with writing and directing commercials when I was younger, and like that's fun because you have someone's like with a lot of money where you can make mistakes all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't care if an ad is terrible, but you care if your comic book or your first novel is terrible. So like you might as well make those mistakes on their bill, if that makes sense.
Make them pay for the mistake. Now, one of my second to last question is, where do you see your industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think we're in kind of a cool spot in terms of, like, you know, before it was all about like the big movie, and so you've got the Captain Americas and all that stuff, and it's awesome. But I think right now TV is the spot, if that makes sense. So like if you're a creator who's doing new stuff, I think it's for TV. And I think like, you know, you see shows like Stranger Things or whatever, or Preacher, which is actually based off a comic. Like I think that's where comics are going.
So you're saying the rise of a digital industry is now getting a lot better.
Happened.
It's already happened.
And so like
digital comic books are getting to become a thing. Digital, like, I mean, even digital books. There are books out there that are just strictly a digital book.
Total. Even like The Martian, you know, the fact that that guy wrote that, put that online, and it was just like, here's the thing, internet. And then the internet's like, well, we love you. Like, let's do everything with you. Like,
now, before we wrap this up, I do have a big question. As this is a comic book convention of sorts,
okay.
I need to know, what is your favorite comic book and or superhero?
I'm obsessed with Saga. Like, I'm such a Brian K. Vaughan, like, fanboy. So when I see him around with, like, you know, my friends, I'm just like, oh my god, he's with my friends eating sushi. What am I, like, should I just, like, saunter over there? Like, Saga's amazing. It's so good. And, like, obviously, you know, Stan Lee's here, and I grew up on Spider-Man.
Yeah,
you know,
no.
So it's like...
Did you get a chance to meet him yet?
No, I saw him talk in San Diego, like, a few years ago, but I haven't, like, shaking the hand, if that makes sense.
I don't think he's shaking anyone's hand. He's like, okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Germs wise.
You know, he's just sending him off, and he's just getting him going. He's actually a really cool dude. I got a chance to meet him yesterday.
Oh, amazing.
I didn't get a chance to sit down because that's almost impossible at this convention. But I mean, you can imagine the amount of stuff they have Stan Lee doing. This being his last convention he's going to be at in Canada. So he's got a tight schedule, and
like the whole city's trying to meet him right now.
Yeah, and he's also 93. Cut him some slack.
Yeah, for sure.
But I thank you again very much, and
thank you, Jesse.
Thank you very much for coming here. Well, you were here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for allowing me to interview you in your booth. It's been amazing. I mean, check out Relativity, guys. It's a really good comic. I actually read it myself. It's available online?
So the prologue issue is available online on Tapastic, and then if you like that, you can buy it starting November, the preview issues, and then January. Yeah.
All right, cool. And that's been Taran.
Yeah.
Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
So many handshakes. And again, that was Taran Chadha, one of the writers of the Night Guardians of Relativity, and his input on the importance of networking at conventions. That's why I was sent out there. That's why he was sent out there. And he told us about all the great opportunities he had when he first started doing graphic novels, and the fact that people reached out to him to see what else he could do. And as you could tell, he has his hands in a lot of pots. I appreciate it as a creator myself, and I hope you guys might have learned something about this, the importance of networking. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Stay tuned for more, and as usual and as always, and until next time, game on, my friends, and stay frosty.